All right, hello. Today, somebody requested that I make an instructional video showing how to do a color overlay. So this is a TM image. You can see all the atoms. This is bright field TM image of a grain boundary right here and a surface of these two different grains. And what I've done here is I've just overlaid three different objects with sort of jagged edges here, and I've given them some value of opacity. Here you can see 20%, 15%, whatever. And then there's one in here because the vacuum was a little dark. I wanted to make it a little brighter. So I'm going to show you a basic example of how to make one of these, but if you look closely, just for illustration, you can see how this looks. What it is basically is just an object, like I said, with a bunch of nodes, right? And the time-consuming part is putting the nodes down here. Fortunately, since this is a crystal, all the atoms are in more or less a lattice, right? So I'm just using approximately the atom centers to define these node positions. And then where there's facets on the surface, I don't have to add that many nodes. So like I said, I'm going to do a basic example because this took a bunch of time to put all the nodes down, and I'll show you how to make this interface between the two different objects nice and actually exactly the same. And yeah, so let's do that. I'm going to open up a new file first and use a slightly simpler figure or slightly simpler data. But first, this thing I want to do is define the page size, because when we export the figure, we want it to be a certain size. So I'll just use inches, and 6.5 by 6.5 is a square figure that fits one full column approximately, and remove the page border. So push 5 to make that full screen, 1 to set the zoom to 100%, and now I'm just going to drag and drop in an image that I think is easy. It's just a simple SEM picture of polycrystalline ceramic sample here. So I'm just going to drag and to maintain the aspect ratio, push Control, and I'm just going to make the shortest edge here 6.5, so that looks like the height, right? So we'll lock the aspect ratio, change the units, make that 6.5, and then Control-Shift-A to align everything to the center of the page. Great. Okay, so then whatever's hanging over the page, as you can see, there's the page outline. Whatever's hanging over the page will get cut off at the end. So basically what I want to do here is just show you how to draw. I'm going to color a couple of these grains and show you how that works. So probably the easiest thing to do is just use this this curve tool, because it'll allow you to define some nodes at the beginning. So for instance, if we want to put the nodes at the corners of the grains, and we'll add a few in later because some of the grains are curved, here you can see, but I can just roughly add nodes there. Make a nice loop, push F1 to exit the tool, and if I click here, then I can, using Shift click, I can change the color of the stroke, which is the outline. So I'll just prepare to make this grain red, and I can even, you can even fill it at this point with the same color. And if I want to make that fill some opacity, let's say 20%, I just type in 20% here. And so I'll do, I'll actually wait to do a second grain because I want to, I'll do this grain here, and we can see we're going to have to add some nodes along this interface. And in order to make my life a little easier, I'm just going to do like a duplicate of this and then use that set of nodes for the other one. So first thing I need to do is just drop in some nodes. So if I double click the object, you can see these are the nodes, they pop up. And so first thing I need to add one between. So what I've done is I've highlighted these two, and I'm going to use this button plus, and it'll put one directly in the middle. Okay. And so now I can take that and drag it where I want it to go. Looks like I need another one there. So I'll just drop in a second one. And you can do this depending on how, depending on how complicated the shape is. And you can see it's trying to snap. So I'm going to use the keyboard to position the node. If I push Alt in the keys, then it'll give me pixel resolution when I move it. Okay. So actually I want to maybe add one here just because, or maybe reposition this one. Oh, but I have two nodes selected, so you can see I can move multiple nodes at the same time. But what I want to do is actually just move one for now, put it right on that triple junction there. Yeah, so I'm going to just call that good for the sake of the demonstration. And so that's basically how you would overlay color on one. I'll just drop another one here so it doesn't look as weird. Okay, good. And so what I'll do now to put the other, I want to color this grain blue, let's say, is but I want to carry over these four nodes so that they're in the exact same place. And what I'll do is I'll duplicate this object. So I'll select the object and push Control D, duplicate. You see the opacity doubles, right? So now, because there's two objects, the effective opacity is higher. And what's nice right now is that this object, those nodes on the top object are in the exact same place. So what I can do is I'm going to just change the color at this point so that it's obvious what I'm working on. So I'll do the fill and then shift click to do the stroke. And so what I'll do now is I'll select all the nodes that are not along this interface. Okay. So I'm just clicking and dragging, and if I shift, and click and drag, I can increase the number of selected objects. And I'm just going to shift them over with my keyboard for now, because I'm ultimately going to reposition them. But what you see is now, no matter which object I push, they have a common interface here. So the nodes of this red thing are along the interface. The nodes of this blue thing are along the interface. Okay, so now that all I have to do is move around these nodes so that they're at the triple junction of this grain. So I'll just go ahead and do that crudely here. Okay, so that's how we would color, right, those two grains. So now they look pretty cool. If I wanted to, let's say I want to do the third grain because it shares two interfaces, there's another task which is related to connecting the nodes from two separate objects. Okay, so I want to, let's say I want to make an interface between, say I want to color another grain with these, with an interface with these two different objects. So what I can do is either, depending on how many nodes there are along the interface, what I can do is I can duplicate this object. So I'll just add a node along this interface on the red, put one right in the middle, and put it here. Okay. And then since I want to maintain those three nodes moving forward, I will I'll duplicate this red object and I'll fill it green just so we can tell it apart more easily. And I will grab these nodes here. And so I want to put some of these just around on this grain. And if we want to maintain the node positions here, then we can add one between, we'll just add a third. And so what I want to do is duplicate this object. I'll fill it with a grain as well. And because this node overlaps the original, that triple junction node from the duplicated red object, I'm going to delete that one. And I'm going to delete these nodes because I actually want to connect these objects by these two nodes. So from here, so I want to break this object here. And I want to break this object here. And I want to connect this node to this one. So now it becomes a single object. And now I want to just rearrange the nodes in the new object. So there, now I have 3 different grains, and they're all colored differently, and they share overlapping interfaces. Okay? Good. So that's basically it, and then if we export the page, you'll see we'll clip a little bit of this, this off, and if you want, you can put these in different layers, but so if we export this, 300, blah, blah, I'll just export this. And so then if I go to the desktop, what we have is this. So that's pretty nice. You can see it clipped it a little bit on the edge, but that's just because the page size. Then you can drop this into whatever you're making. All right, cool.